The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
It's Friday, you bastards.
We will be releasing the Inspector General's letters, but I want to read one sentence from them. Mr. Atkinson wrote, I set forth the reasons for my concluding that the subject matter involved in the complainant's disclosure not only falls within the DNI's jurisdiction, but relates to one of the most significant and important of the DNI's responsibilities to the American people. This is what's being withheld from Congress right now. We do know that the Department of Justice has been involved in the decision to withhold that information from Congress. We do not know, because we cannot get an answer to the question about whether the White House is also involved in preventing this information from coming to Congress.
You think?
We do not have the complaint. We do not know whether the press reports are accurate or inaccurate about the contents of that complaint. But what I do know is this: if in a matter within the jurisdiction of the Director of National Intelligence, you have an employee of that community or a contractor or detailee who follows the law and makes a complaint, and it is possible for the subject of that complaint to essentially quash the complaint or keep it from Congress, then this system is badly broken.
It is. The system is badly broken. All right, everybody, you ready for all this information? Because this is going to be really good, okay? This is what I think is going on. And then once I tell you what I think is going on, we'll listen to Rudy Giuliani's off the freaking hook interview last night with Chris Cuomo. And I'll tell you why Rudy did it. I'll tell you why Rudy went on the TV just moments, literally, after the president saw Adam Schiff come out and say, our system is badly broken. You got an inspector general over at the intelligence community who oversees all the intelligence community, the IG, right, Atkinson, who is trying to follow the law, which says that if somebody comes as a whistleblower to the inspector general, which is the required first stop for anybody who wants to complain, right, they have to go to the IG first. And then the IG, the inspector general, will do an investigation and find out if that person is saying something that is credible and if the threat is urgent, meaning national security is at stake. The inspector general found that was so with regard to what this whistleblower inside the intelligence community was telling him. And this whistleblower said it wasn't just one instance, it was multiple instances of doing things, the president doing things that was a threat to our national security. IG agreed, thought that was so, thought that was happening, and wanted to comply with the law. The law says that in a case like that, the IG shall. This is just like the tax code. Remember the tax code where if the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee decides that they want the president's tax returns, then the IRS shall provide. Yeah, well, the president is a law-breaking, SOB. So, of course, the Department of Justice, Bill Barr, the cover-up king, the guy who's been working for years to create a unitary executive, meaning I answer to nobody, America's now got a king, which is, of course, why we fought the Revolutionary War, right? Because we were so happy with a king. It's ridiculous. But he inserted himself, Bill Barr did, and said, oh, no. If these transcripts or whatever it is that this particular whistleblower has that he was able to show the IG is released, this president is done for. So Rudy Giuliani realizes the iron is hot, let's strike, and books himself on Chris Cuomo's show, Chris Cuomo Primetime, on the CNN. Why does he do that? He does that because he needs to get into everybody's mind the idea that Joe Biden is corrupt. This is the new email, okay? This is the new Hillary Clinton email story. So what I want to show you, what I want to predict, what I want to say, I have deduced from listening to, reading Paul Manafort's indictment and everything, and his sentencing memo and all these things, okay? I want to tell you what I think is going on. The election has started. Truly it has. I told you after Labor Day it was going to get interesting. Didn't I tell you wait till September? I kept telling you wait till September. It's going to get real interesting. You're going to see impeachment's going to get real, which it has. And because we saw Corey Lewandowski be a snot-nosed little, twit, right? You saw all that this week. And invoking privileges out of thin air that don't exist. And I can't answer. And I this and I that. We saw subpoenas be defied by Rick Dearborn, defied by Hope Hicks, defied by Don McGahn. We've seen, Rob Porter, the wife beater, also defied a subpoena this week. All this is real. This is real stuff. It's really going on. Why? Because the election has begun. It's after Labor Day. No white shoes, and the election has begun in America. And it will continue for the next year. A year and 2 months of this swill is what we got now. So Rudy Giuliani decides, I better strike while the iron is hot. Here's what I think is going on. Vladimir Putin is back, everybody. He never really left. As you know, in 2018, he was meddling around, right? But Vladimir Putin is back. What do I mean by that? Well, Donald Trump is super desperate because his poll numbers really stink. I mean, like I said, 62% of America is very enthusiastic to vote against him. We just are. We can't wait. It's what we're living for. We wish we could vote today, all right? And if the election was held today, we all know Donald Trump would lose. Donald Trump knows that too. And he is desperate. Vlad knows Donald Trump is desperate. Vlad doesn't want a real American president. Vlad wants somebody that he finds, let's just say, blackmailable, friendly, somebody who's money hungry, somebody who doesn't care about America, doesn't care about the country, doesn't care about the people, doesn't care about anything but himself. And in Donald Trump, he has found that friend. So Vlad is back. Vlad knows Trump's desperate. Remember, the whistleblower said there are multiple instances of promises, offers, conversations that threaten the national security. And I bet you anything. I bet you $1 to a donut, whatever the hell that means, that one of those phone calls has to do with Vlad, and the other one has to do with the president of Ukraine. His name is Volodymyr, okay? Like Vladimir, but the Ukrainian version, Volodymyr Zelensky, okay? Now, what Vladimir Putin is doing is threatening Ukraine. Ukraine's got very bad weaponry, okay? Everything that they have is 40 years old. As you know, Putin annexed Crimea and holds a good chunk of eastern Ukraine. Also, the Ukrainians are fighting internal corruption, which is their second war. 13,000 people were killed in Ukraine by Vlad. You know that, right? Okay, just to put it in context. They got a new president. This guy is also a TV star. He's a TV show guy. His name is Zelensky. Let's just call him that, okay? So Donald Trump apparently calls Vlad. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And Vlad says, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to prop up Biden in America, okay? We want Biden to be the guy that takes you on. Why? Because Biden's son was very busy for the last 10 years in China and in Ukraine, okay? He was very busy building businesses, and we have some dirt on him, or something that could be perceived as questionable about his business. So what you're going to do is we're going to troll. We're going to make Biden. We're going to, say Biden is our guy, blah, blah, blah. We're going to say he's more electable, whatever it is, and we're going to prop up Biden so that we can knock him down once he's the nominee, okay? Because we have dirt on Biden, so we're going to prop him up to knock him down. Also, Mr. President, I now have you on tape talking to me saying you're willing to take dirt on Biden, and now you're going to call Zelensky. And you're going to threaten Zelensky. You're going to say to him, if you want defense, if you want money for defense, you got $250 million worth of military defense money, and you're not going to give it to him until he agrees to open up a brand new investigation into Joe Biden's son. And then you'll release the money. You follow? I think that's it.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go
for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Okay, here's the setup.
There is now breaking news on that urgent complaint about President Trump. It involves Ukraine. This comes from the Washington Post. You might remember House Democrats have been examining whether the president and his attorney, Rudy Giuliani, sought to manipulate the Ukrainian government into helping the Trump re-election campaign. They were doing that before this complaint. Now, something that may seem confusing as you go through the facts tonight is that the subject phone call that we now know took place in this time frame that people are looking at. When this complaint came in, who did the president speak to? Who was a leader at that time? He spoke to the president of Ukraine. Now, that call was already the subject of curiosity by Congress because they were looking into these earlier efforts, in part announced by Mr. Giuliani about his intentions of trying to get to Ukraine to figure out some things about some of Mr. Trump's political opponents.
Okay, so under the auspices of finding out the origin of the investigation, the counterintelligence investigation into Russian meddling, under the auspices of getting to the origin of that, Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney, his personal attorney, not a diplomat, not a member of the State Department, not a member of the Pentagon, not a military member, not anything. But under the auspices of investigating the origins of the terrible Mueller report, right, which happened listen, this was a counterintelligence investigation into the systemic and sweeping interference in our elections by Vladimir Putin. That's what this started out as. This is what James Comey was investigating, and it only became a obstruction of justice investigation after Donald Trump fired James Comey. So it's all a ruse, right? Under the auspices of trying to figure out, the Trump administration has attempted to do two things by shaking down Ukraine. Number one, they want them to get to a point where they admit that they were the origin of the problems Paul Manafort had. When Paul Manafort was lobbying for a killer, Viktor Yanukovych, right? Who's gone, long gone. And Paul Manafort is doing 7.5 years in prison because of money laundering, tax fraud, Foreign Agent Registration Act violations. He's sitting in prison for 7.5 years. Rudy Giuliani has been tasked with shaking down Ukraine to produce exculpatory evidence about Paul Manafort's time in Ukraine, supporting and cleaning up the reputation of this killer, Viktor Yanukovych. Swear to God. And the other part of what Rudy is doing over in Ukraine is he's trying to get dirt on Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son. That's what Rudy is up to. That's what Rudy is doing. Why? Because they have come up with a plan. And the plan is pretty straightforward, simple. Remember, Vladimir Putin is a KGB agent. Okay? This is the kind of manipulation that Vladimir Putin knows exactly how to do. And so what Vladimir Putin is telling Donald Trump is, we're going to prop up Joe Biden. We're going to, we got troll farm, we got all kinds of support. That's not real, but nobody will know. And we're going to launch it, and we're going to prop up Joe Biden. And once he's the nominee and the guy that you're running against, we're going to knock him down, same way we did to Hillary. And it doesn't matter if it's true about Hunter or not. All that matters is it's a taint. And this is the very beginning of what we are about to live through if Joe Biden prevails and becomes the Democratic nominee. This is the whole thing. Every rally is going to be about the dirty Bidens. Every rally is going to be about, banking, whatever. There's no evidence to support the idea that Hunter Biden did anything wrong. But they do have one tape of Joe Biden. They have one tape of Joe Biden talking to the Council on Foreign Relations, where Joe Biden has always got to relive history. And Joe Biden is sitting there at the Council on Foreign Relations, and he's remembering a story of when he went to Ukraine, when Ukraine was so corrupt back in the day when he was vice president. and that he had gone to Ukraine. Now, remember, he's entitled to do this because he was the vice president of the United States, all right? He was a constitutional officer, and he was taking the message of Barack Obama to Ukraine. And the message Barack Obama was sending to Ukraine was you either clean up all this corruption, because they had the protests there, which is... Vladimir Putin has never gotten over the protests, okay? This is why he hates Hillary Clinton. In 2013 and 14, yeah, the Maidan, or the Maidan, some people say, okay, it was an anti-corruption movement that took hold in Ukraine and parts of Russia. And Vladimir was beside himself because he remembers when he was a KGB agent and he was a colonel. And in the KGB building, the Russian people started to, push back. And they got rid of the KGB. And Vlad has never forgiven the people. He hates people. People are an impediment to owning the world. He's now the richest man in the world. Anyway, they got this tape of Joe Biden reliving this history of a $1 billion loan guarantee that Ukraine had asked for. And we were telling Ukraine that they couldn't have it unless they cleaned up the corruption. And so they have this tape of Biden.
Well, I was, not but it just happened to be, that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones. So I got Ukraine. And I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
And so they are using this as bait to bait you, okay? And they're saying that the only reason why Joe Biden told Poroshenko, who was also corrupt and is gone, long gone, that he needed to fire the prosecutor because the prosecutor was also corrupt. And this was the second front in the war that the Ukrainian people were having. It was with their court system. It was with their prosecutors. It was with judges. And, we're going to have it too here now. They're saying that the reason why Biden went over there and had the prosecutor fired is because the prosecutor was investigating Hunter Biden. That is demonstrably false. The years, if you make a timeline, which I've done, they don't line up. It didn't happen that way. Hunter Biden broke no law. The Ukrainians now are speaking out and saying they're looking for dirt on Joe Biden.
Clear. Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Let me tell you what happened.
Okay.
Yes.
What happened is that I was investigating, going back to last year, complaints that the Ukrainian people, several people in Ukraine, knew about a tremendous amount of collusion between Ukrainian officials and Hillary Clinton and the Democratic National Committee, including a completely fraudulent document that was produced in order to begin the investigation of Manafort. They were trying to get to us, but they were being blocked by the ambassador, who was an Obama appointee in Ukraine, who was holding back this information. In the course of investigating that, I found out this incredible story about Joe Biden, that he bribed the president of the Ukraine in order to fire a prosecutor who was investigating his son. That is an astounding scandal of major proportions, which all of you have covered up for about 5 or 6 months. You've also covered up the fact that Biden and his son took $1.5 billion out of China, and that's why the president thinks you're a corrupt media, because if this were President Trump and Donald Trump Jr., and they took millions of dollars from a corrupt oligarch in the Ukraine, and they took 1.5 billion out of China while the president was negotiating with China, you would be screaming and yelling and going crazy about how corrupt it is. And because it's Joe Biden and he's a protected Democrat, you don't cover it.
Okay, none of that is possibly true. None of it, because Paul Manafort was tried. Paul Manafort's indictments are public. You can read them. You can see the evidence against him. Paul Manafort's offices were raided. Paul Manafort didn't pay his taxes. Paul Manafort was money laundering. Paul Manafort was a lobbyist for Viktor Yanukovych, who was a killer. All these things really did happen, and we know that because Paul Manafort is in jail for 7.5 years. So Rudy Giuliani is saying it's really about Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton set Paul Manafort up. That's his claim there. And it's ridiculous. The bribe he's talking about is that tape I just played you from Joe Biden reliving the glory days of his vice presidency. He's talking about calling up the guy who succeeded Viktor Yanukovych, Petro Poroshenko. Now, as far as Russian names go, these are not so bad. These are not really difficult ones, okay? So it makes it a lot easier for the listener, okay? So Yanukovych is gone because he's a killer, and there are protests all throughout Ukraine about him. 2013-14, the people of Ukraine manage to wrestle free and get Yanukovych gone. Where does Yanukovych go? Where does he go? He goes to Russia. Putin protects Yanukovych. The next guy in is this guy, Poroshenko. Poroshenko promises the Ukrainian people, after all these protests and all this killing and 13,000 dead and every other thing, he's going to tackle corruption. But he doesn't. He doesn't. His prosecutor was a guy named Shokin. Shokin is a dirty prosecutor, and the people of Ukraine know it. And the people of Ukraine reach out to the United States asking for help. And they say to the people of the United States, please establish some sort of an anti-corruption bureau in Ukraine. Please get NATO, get our allies, we'll do everything and anything to cooperate with you. We just have to clean up our country so that we can attract foreign investment. Obama agrees that this is a good plan. So Obama tells Poroshenko that if he gets rid of this corrupt prosecutor and he straightens up and he does what he promised the people of Ukraine to do, the reforms that he ran on, the reforms that he promised, the new government, the cleanliness of it, the transparency, all these things, that they will give him, in order to increase foreign investment, a chance at a $1 billion loan guarantee. But they have to clean up their justice system, which is what the Ukrainian people say is the second war. First was getting rid of the killer. Now it's getting rid of all his appointees. Now it's cleaning out the entire criminal justice system that protects. And by the way, during this period of time, they have immunity. Just like our president says that you can't prosecute, or even now he says you can't even investigate a president, which would be news to Mueller. That would be news to Mueller. But yesterday, the administration of the United States of America took a position saying you can't even investigate a president, which, by the way, is shocking to everyone who participated in the investigation of Donald Trump. And he's an unindicted co-conspirator. But in Ukraine, it was such that you couldn't prosecute any member of parliament while they were sitting. That's long gone. That was part of their anti-corruption effort. So now if you're serving in parliament in Ukraine, you can still be investigated and, yes, indicted. So that's a problem, and it's going to be our problem too. Live and learn. Okay, so Poroshenko's got this prosecutor Shokin, and this is the prosecutor that they're saying they wanted out of there. The Ukrainians are. So Biden says they have a talk with Obama, and Obama says, the Ukrainian people are doing all the right things, blah, 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 but we have to clean up their justice. We'll set up an anti-corruption, sort of a bureau with the rest of the civilized world, with the European Union. And so the European Union joins the United States of America, and they establish an independent agency at our urging with the European Union to investigate and prosecute corruption and graft in Ukraine. It was called the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, or NABU. And it was an independent agency, and they did find that this prosecutor was corrupt and dirty. And so we officially, as a member of the of our government, we dispatched the vice president of the United States to Poroshenko's Ukraine and said, you either clean this up, get rid of these people who are on the take, get rid of these people who are still, prosecuting people for political purposes, et cetera, or we're not going to make this loan to you. This is what he's talking about. Rudy Giuliani is referring to it as a bribe.
Well, I was not but it just happened to be that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones, so I got Ukraine, and I remember going over convincing our team, or others, to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
Well, see, this is Biden's problem, okay? The prosecutor didn't get fired as much as Parliament voted to remove him, and 289 members of the Ukrainian Parliament voted to remove him, most of them members of his own party.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Okay, see if you could follow along. This is Rudy Giuliani and his bouncing, BS.
George Soros had a not-for-profit called ANTAC.
George
ANTAC
Soros
is the one that developed all of the dirty information that ended up being a false document that was created in order to incriminate Manafort.
Do you have the proof of that? That's who found all the things? Because,
December,
the United States Attorney here found its own stuff about that.
December 16th, 2018, there is a finding by a court in the Ukraine that a man named Lushenko, something like that, that he produced a phony affidavit that was given to the American authorities and an FBI agent named Greenway, and they found him guilty of that. Nobody reports that in the United States because you don't report things that are favorable to the president and negative to Democrats. Let me go further about findings.
Let's go step by step. Because forget about the fact that you said what I said was erroneous.
It is, Chris.
I didn't say any of the things you're saying now. I don't even know if they're true.
Right.
But the idea...
Well, then why did you say I was doing it for political purposes?
I didn't say political purposes. I said you were going after political opponents of Mr. Trump. That's what Joe Biden is. That's what Hillary Clinton is.
Joe Biden is presumed innocent. But somebody's got to investigate him for going to the president of the Ukraine and telling him...
That's fine. You just want to make sure that you're not going there under color of authority of the president.
Right.
But let me ask you something else.
Not because of the authority of the president, because when the new prosecutor that Joe put in came in, he not only dismissed the case on Hunter Biden for getting about $6 million in laundered money from
the prosecutor that was removed, which was the original intrigue on Joe Biden. That prosecutor was removed, first of all, by consensus of a multiple of Western countries, and it was after Hunter Biden stuff was done.
That's right.
Yeah, look, you should have your hand on your face. You know why? This is all a distraction from what I asked you for.
No, it isn't a distraction, Chris. What you just said is totally wrong.
It's not what I just... It's completely wrong. It is totally correct and in the factual timeline. The prosecutor was out.
You don't know what happened. I know what happened.
How do you know and I don't know?
You're just repeating spin. The prosecutor...
But you don't, right? You're not spinning anything. Go ahead.
I'm not spinning a damn thing.
Okay.
I'm telling you the truth.
Okay.
The prosecutor was removed because he was investigating the Sun, and he was investigating Soros's charity, or whatever the hell it was, Antac. The new prosecutor that came in dismissed both cases. And
the prosecutor who was pushed out was unanimously seen as corrupt, by the way.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't unanimously seen as corrupt.
Yes,
That's
he
after
was.
the fact statement. The prosecutor...
What do you mean after the fact statement? Was he seen as corrupt or no?
You go look at Joe Biden, who probably is working with half the IQ that you and I have.
Oh my God.
If you listen to Joe Biden's tape, he convicts himself. He says, I told the president of the Ukraine, if you don't dismiss this guy, you're not going to get your $1.2
All right, so that's what you say
billion
Biden said to the Ukraine. Did you ask the Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden?
No, actually, I didn't. I asked the Ukraine to investigate the allegations that there was interference in the election of 2016 by the Ukrainians for the benefit of Hillary Clinton, for which there already is a
You
court
never asked
finding.
anything about Hunter Biden. You never asked anything about Joe Biden.
The only
and his
thing
role
I
with the
asked about
prosecutor.
Joe Biden is to get to the bottom of how it was that Lutsenko, who was appointed, dismissed the case against Antac.
So you did ask Ukraine to look into Joe Biden?
Of course I did.
You just said you didn't.
Okay. But he's crazy like a fox, right? Because now everybody, you know, there's like a little taint around the Bidens, right? This is what this was about. Okay, here's your timeline. The prosecutor that was voted out in a vote of no confidence by Parliament, 289 votes to remove him in a vote of no confidence. Most of the people voting, members of his own party. The Shokin guy, this prosecutor, was voted out by Parliament after the Ukrainian people said, could you please set up an anti-corruption? And the EU and America got together and worked with Ukrainians and said, we're going to set up this anti-corruption thing, right? Finally, in 2016, very end of the Obama administration, that is when the vote was taken in Ukraine to remove this prosecutor, Shokin, in a vote of no confidence. So Rudy Giuliani is lying that, he was suddenly removed, and Joe Biden makes mistakes when he talks, and this is a problem, okay? You go, oh, so son of a bitch, he was fired. He wasn't fired. He was voted out by his own parliament, by his own Congress. The new guy who came in, all of a sudden, Rudy remembers his name, is Lutsenko. He didn't dismiss any case against Hunter Biden. The case against Hunter Biden never existed. Why? Because Shokin, the guy who was who was voted out in 2016, had closed that case in 2014. And Hunter Biden didn't join the board of directors as their legal counsel for this gas company. That's the company he's talking about, is a gas company named Burisma, okay? He didn't join that company until 2014. So by 2014, the case against Burisma, this oil and gas company, is shut down by Shokin, okay? Hunter Biden wasn't even part of the board of that company until 2014. By 2014, that investigation was over. Whether there was corruption or not in that gas company, we'll never know, because the prosecutor that was looking into that gas company was a corrupt guy. But it was closed in 2014. In 2014, that's when Hunter Biden joins the board of a Ukrainian gas company, which you might find distasteful. That's up to you. You might say that is just hinky or weird, or why is he doing it? Up to you. But what Rudy Giuliani is alleging, that there is dirt on Hunter Biden doing bad things, stealing money, or whatever it is he's suggesting here, and that Joe Biden bribed this prosecutor to shut the case, the one that's there now, Lutsenko, who didn't shut the case. The case had been closed for 2 years. And Lutsenko came in with this Zelensky guy, who's supposed to be the real reformer. Here's what Ukraine said to the Daily Beast, okay? They spoke to the Daily Beast last week, before we even found out about this whistleblower. And they said that they had told the Daily Beast last Saturday, I think, that there was nothing that was questionable about, Biden's son or anything like that. But they also talked to Bloomberg News again before this whistleblower story came out. And Lutsenko contradicted a claim by Trump supporters, Rudy Giuliani, that he was investigating this gas company, Burisma. Lutsenko explained to Bloomberg News that he was conducting an unrelated investigation of a different company that involved transactions that occurred before Hunter Biden ever even joined the board in 2014. Meaning he was looking at the investigation Shokin did, this corrupt prosecutor who was voted out by his own people, right? His own parliament. And so Lutsenko, who is the real reformer, came in and he is looking into activities by this gas company prior to 2014, because the guy who looked at it up until 2016, up until 2014 when he closed the case, was a corrupt prosecutor. I hope that makes sense. I know it's a place far, far away. I know there's Russian names. I know that it's difficult. I know that, Ukraine doesn't really exist for a lot of people. It's just a place somewhere on a map, somewhere in Europe, somewhere over there, somewhere this. I'm Ukrainian, so it exists for me, okay? It's a real place for me. And I'm telling you that this case has nothing to do with Biden. Any Biden, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, nothing to do. But the taint of it is really what they aim to put out. It's just like Hillary Clinton's emails. Just the mere fact that there was a private server. Oh, she must have done something wrong. Just the mere fact that Hunter Biden joined a Ukrainian gas company after 2014, after all of this, all of these demonstrations against Yanukovych were over. Yanukovych was ousted. Ukraine was trying to open itself up for international investment, for foreign money to come in. They were trying to clean up their act. Hunter Biden decided that he would provide legal counsel to this gas company that had been under investigation for corruption. And he would, insert himself in there on the board and try and straighten them out, try and make them do business in a transparent, non-corrupt way. That was his little gift, okay? He made a lot of money doing it. It's a rich kid problem, I guess. I don't know. I don't have these problems. But that is when and why Hunter Biden decided to join the board of a company that had been cleared of wrongdoing, but by a dirty prosecutor. And after 2014, after the demonstrations, after the anti-corrupt, after they ousted Yanukovych, he said, I will join the board and I will provide legal counsel to help them attract foreign investment.
Mary had a little lamb.
The false. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
What story? The whistleblower, whether it was ridiculous story. It's a partisan whistleblower. They shouldn't even have information. I've had conversations with many leaders that are always appropriate. I think Scott can tell you that. Always appropriate, at the highest level, always appropriate. And anything I do, I fight for this country. I fight so strongly for this country. It's just another political hack job. That's all it is.
On that point, did you discuss Joe Biden, his son, or his family with the leadership?
It doesn't matter what I discuss, but I will say this. Somebody ought to look into Joe Biden's statement because it was disgraceful, where he talked about billions of dollars that he's not giving to a certain country unless a certain prosecutor's taken off the case. So somebody ought to look into that, and you wouldn't because he's a Democrat. And the fake news doesn't look into things like that. It's a disgrace. But I had a great conversation with numerous people. I don't even know exactly who you're talking about, but I had a great conversation with numerous people, numerous leaders, and I always look for the conversation that's going to help the United States the most. That's very important.
Oh, for God's say.
So now the Wall Street Journal, everybody, okay? That is not any, left-wing thing, okay? It's the Wall Street Journal, Wall Street's newspaper. They are reporting that Trump urged and spoke to Ukrainian President Zelensky 8 times and wanted them to go work with Giuliani and investigate Hunter Biden. 8 times. I'm telling you, Vladimir Putin is back. That is what he is doing. So here you've got Ukraine that's trying to pull itself out of a cycle of corruption with its prosecutors and with its security services. And the man who is now the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, okay, he won in a landslide. They wanted somebody that, was, not connected to government. They wanted an outsider, and they picked a guy who played a president on TV in Ukraine. That's who Zelensky is. Okay. And so Mike Pence went over there and he tried to get Zelensky to investigate Biden. Rudy Giuliani's been going over there since May. And then Rudy Giuliani was bragging about trying to get the new Ukrainian president to investigate Hunter Biden. He was bragging about it to the point where 3 House committees, 3 of them, had already begun an investigation into the president's private attorney shaking down, extorting a new Ukrainian president with a commitment to be an anti-corruption president, right? Extorting him to go and make up dirt about Joe Biden's son in a case that had nothing to do with Joe Biden's son. Nothing at all to do with Joe Biden's son, because Joe Biden's son did not start working for this gas company until after the demonstrations were over and Viktor Yanukovych was ousted. And that's when he joined the board of this gas company. And by then, that was 2014, that case had been closed because what they looked at with that particular gas company was prior to 2014. But the prosecutor who looked at it prior to 2014 was a corrupt prosecutor who brought no charges against the corrupt gas company oligarch. Okay? And that is the entire story. And so in 2016, Joe Biden was 2 years later, Joe Biden was dispatched at the behest of the Ukrainian people who had gone to the EU, who had gone to America and said, please set up an anti-corruption unit, something independent, something that could clean up the security services, something that could get, the second war. We got Yanukovych out. Okay, the reason why they got Yanukovych out, just so you can have the full story of why the people of Ukraine rose up in this manner, why, and Hillary Clinton encouraged it. People, from Ukraine or with relations to Ukraine or who cared about democracy around the world encouraged it and were standing with the people of Ukraine when they were protesting in the street. 13,000 died. 13,000. The reason for the protests was Vladimir Putin had Viktor Yanukovych, who was Paul Manafort's client, pledge to Vlad that he would never join the European Union. He would become part of Russia. He would return Ukraine to Russia instead of joining NATO, instead of joining the European Union. And America and Russia that's why Obama didn't get along with Putin, because Putin was going to take Ukraine by hook or by crook. And he had inserted this Viktor Yanukovych dude in there, and Viktor Yanukovych was going to align Ukraine with Russia while the Ukrainian people wanted to be part of the European Union. They believed that Ukraine's future was a European future, not a Russian future. They understood that Russia was an also-ran, that it was a backsliding oligarchy. They didn't want anything to do with Russia. And that's why they protested. And that's why they died on their own streets. Just so you know. And Vlad is back. And when they're telling you, when the whistleblower is trying to tell the inspector general that this isn't one phone call that he was reacting to, these are multiple instances of somebody doing something in violation of the best interests of the United States. Somebody is putting the security of the United States in harm's way. then and now we know that it has to do with Ukraine. And now the Wall Street Journal is also, I mean, the Washington Post was the leader on this story. The New York Times then not only not reprinted, but corroborated what the Washington Post was reporting, but then was able to advance the story a little further. And they were able to tell you two things. One, it wasn't one instance, it was multiple instances, okay, of doing things that were counter to the security interests of the United States. And also that it was Ukraine. So that's what we learned. And now the Wall Street Journal, a third newspaper of record, is reporting that Trump 8 times told Zelensky over in Ukraine to work with Rudy Giuliani and to investigate Biden's son. Now, remember a couple of months ago, it was like in May, everybody was kind of like freaked out that Donald Trump was standing in the way of the military aid that we had promised Ukraine if they would straighten out their corruption and all this stuff, that we would give them $250 million to modernize their defense systems against more Russian incursion. Well, Donald Trump has been holding that as a carrot in front of Zelensky for a really long time. And now we're finding out that 8 times he sent his personal attorney. Rudy Giuliani actually announced that he was going to meet with Zelensky. And the outrage about this was so widespread that he canceled the meeting. But then he had a secret meeting. He had a secret meeting with Ukrainian representatives in Madrid, in Spain. And then Donald Trump dispatched Mike Pence. And Mike Pence actually did a face-to-face with Zelensky. And the Wall Street Journal is reporting the whole time, Trump is using a $250 million pledge to help Ukraine defend itself, okay? And he's extorting Zelensky, who's trying to decorrupt the government. And he's saying, corruption is good. You want the money, you're going to do something corrupt. You're going to investigate Hunter Biden. And they're saying there's nothing to investigate him about. He didn't do anything. Well, you're going to do it or we won't give you the 250. In the end, on September 12th, 8 days ago, Donald Trump must have gotten a result. Well, I know he did. The Ukrainians have now said that they will investigate Hunter Biden. And in exchange, on September 12th, Donald Trump not only gave him 250, gave him 140 million more, gave him 390. Here's a little something for you. So good luck to you in Ukraine. I know that you've been fighting since 2013 to end the corruption in your country, to become more European than Russian, to join NATO, to get protection from incursion by Vlad. Well, he's back, and Trump is his henchman.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Regardless of what he worked for, who he worked for before, this is annoying. This is a punk who's snitching out the president's phone calls to a foreign leader. Imagine that the president, our leader, is talking to the leader of another country, and you got all these, deep state people listening in, and the first chance they get, they run to Adam Schiff and say, hey, we have this urgent, serious leak. The president, and I know the president. I could see him on the phone. Hey, dude, you do this. We'll see. I could see.
They say it's the Ukrainian comedian president. It was the new Ukrainian comedian president, and it happened in May.
Right. And, I am intrigued, though, by the Joe Biden story. Is this the fatal flaw in the vice president's campaign for president? Did he intervene to help Hunter, his son, in a deal gone bad with a Ukrainian company? Did he, say, remove a prosecutor? If that is true, I think that is the real headline. That will be the ripple that turns into a tidal wave that affects the election, I believe.
You see what I mean? It's just the taint, okay? And so not only does Hunter Biden have to be tainted and Joe Biden have to be tainted, but also the whistleblower. Somebody inside the intelligence community is now a punk. Somebody inside the intelligence community who felt strongly enough, was concerned enough about what was going on that was counter to our interests the United States national security interests in the world regarding Ukraine's future. Either Ukraine's future is going to be a European American future, or Ukraine's future is going to be under Vladimir Putin. Okay. And we already know how much Vlad wants Ukraine because he's already invaded it. He's already annexed Crimea. Okay. He's already done it. And they're sitting there calling people who would protect people who are trying to align themselves with American ideals, American values, transparency, clean government, good government, freedom of the press, all these things. He's calling a person who heard the president at least 8 times, according to the Wall Street Journal, literally bribing through his personal attorney. His personal attorney. This is nobody in our government. This is nobody. This is a nothing, a nobody. Rudy Giuliani wanted to be... Oh, and remember this. I don't know if you remember or not, but I'm going to refresh right now for you. In 2007, do you remember when Rudy Giuliani was running for president? Guess which Democrat killed Rudy Giuliani's presidential chances? It was Joe Biden. I don't know if you remember this or not, but Joe Biden actually had in a Democratic debate. Giuliani wasn't on the stage. This was all the Democrats debating each other. It was Hillary Clinton. It was Joe Biden. There were a whole host of Democrats. And Joe Biden said, he goes, I'm not fighting other Democrats. I'm fighting against the Republicans. He said, look at Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani has nothing to say except the noun, a verb, and 9/11. That's all Rudy Giuliani's claim to fame is. A noun, a verb, and 9/11. Because that's what Rudy Giuliani... I was down on the pile on 9/11, and it happened on my what? And Rudy Giuliani was the idiot who put the Emergency Response Center to Terrorism in the World Trade Center. Okay. That particular phrase of Rudy Giuliani is nothing more than a noun, a verb, and 9/11 stuck. It stuck like glue. And it killed Rudy Giuliani's presidential chances. Killed it. It's between the brothers, Kay. I'm serious. These blood feuds go long time, go deep. But I just want you to know that last week, when the president released not just $250 million to Ukraine for its defense modernization, he released 390. Like, here's the 140 for you, 250 for the military, and 140 for you. Here, you take it. That is when Ukraine said they were ready to investigate the connections between Joe Biden's son Hunter and Burisma, the gas company. That's according to a senior advisor to the country's interior minister who would oversee such an inquiry. Now, that's what's on those tapes. That's what the whistleblower has. And I'll bet you it's not just those 8 phone calls that Trump made to Zelensky, but I'll bet you there's somewhere in there a phone call when, I don't know, Donald Trump said he was talking to Vlad about wildfires. And you remember how bizarre that was to us, that he would be talking about wildfires, in Siberia, which is really strange, but that he was offering American firefighters to help Vlad fight the Siberian wildfires. Yeah, I'll bet that conversation wasn't exactly about wildfires. You see, I bet that was the conversation where Vlad said, I got this, okay? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure Biden is the nominee, and then we're going to knock him down because I got friends in high places. Ukraine is, you hold up that money. You don't give them that money. They're terrified of me. I'm going to make them an offer they can't refuse. Either Zelensky's brains or his signature is going to be on an open investigation into Hunter Biden, and you'll send him the money, or we invade. And they got 40-year-old military equipment. There's no way. And Vlad is doing this to help Donald Trump again. Again. So I'm sure the whistleblower has Trump on tape. I'm sure he does. I'm sure there are readouts. I'm sure there are transcripts. I'm sure and Vlad's got more compromise on Donald Trump. More. What a sick presidency this is. I hope I've made it like crystal clear. I hope I've taken something that's very far away with foreign names and you know, because the people of Ukraine are really in their hearts. They are European. They are American. They love freedom. They want to be a clean and open society, and they have been fighting for that since 2013. And Manafort and people connected to Donald Trump have been trying to re-corrupt them, have been trying to keep them under the thumb of Vladimir Putin for all these many years. That's what Manafort was doing. And it's sick and it's sad because here you've got a country of people that are so willing to sacrifice everything, in order to be a democracy, in order to have freedom of the press, in order to have their journalists stop showing up dead. And that was happening the whole time that we're talking about here. That was happening with this Shokin dude, with Poroshenko. It was happening with Yanukovych. Of course it was happening. I mean, it's been happening where anybody that speaks up, anybody that spoke out, journalists were, and you had one woman, she had acid thrown in her face. I mean, this is all Russian interference. And the theory here that's at play is you confuse the people where nothing is believable. You don't know what the truth is, which means anything is possible. That's propaganda. And Ukraine and the Ukrainian people are trying to tell you something and have been for a really stinking long time. Now, one guy's in jail for 7.5 years for aiding and abetting that sort of disgusting behavior.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Let's recap here. We have Roswell, Rachel Maddow, yes, America's #1 psycho conspiracy theorist, and all of our fellow Russia, impeach, collusion, stormy, obsessed conspiracy theorists in the media mob. They didn't really seem to care at all about Obama's promise to Vladimir or Clinton's promise to North Korea or the money that they dumped on the mullahs in Iran. But they will run wall-to-wall coverage about it. At best, a nebulous story where we don't know the identity of the whistleblower. We don't know any details of the allegations. We don't know which world leader was referenced. Nobody has a clue what the so-called promise was. Naturally, nobody else in the media that is now echoing what the Washington Post says ever decided to independently verify these unknown claims on their own that this unknown individual is making. So tonight, the Washington Post is adding to their unknown report that the whistleblower's complaint involves the country of Ukraine. Now, I was happy at this news. Maybe they will give us information that they said that they want to give us that we have not taken yet about their influence in the 2016 election to help Hillary Clinton. Or maybe they're going to tell us, why they really gave in to Joe Biden's pressure, basically leveraging $1 billion of our taxpayer dollars. Here's what we also know. We do know that key facts, details don't matter to this mob, this media mob. Rush Limbaugh pointed out, you can tell these people any single thing you want. They'll report it verbatim so long as it can be used to smear Trump.
Okay, let's just review. Russia actually did interfere in our elections. We know that because there was a counterintelligence investigation, and then there was an investigation into the obstruction of the counterintelligence investigation. And there were 10 instances that were documented by Robert Mueller, the special counsel, of the obstruction. And then prior to that, in Volume 1, there was at least 100 pages laying out how Russia systemically and in a sweeping fashion interfered in our elections, and how Donald Trump encouraged it, how Donald Trump asked for help. You saw it with your own eyes. You heard it with your own ears. But let's believe Sean Hannity. Okay, so we know the Russia thing is real. So why is he calling Rachel Maddow Roswell Rachel? I don't get it. Iran, they got their own money back that the world had frozen in their banking systems at the time of Iranian sanctions way back in the day, until the world and the United Nations voted to release Iran's own money back to Iran because they had signed on to the JCPOA, a joint agreement to be monitored for uranium enrichment and any activities related to nuclear energy and or a bomb. Donald Trump pulled us out of that JCPOA, and now look where we are. He's consorting with his military geniuses, who have all left, by the way. And what the hell is he talking about Hillary and North Korea? Donald Trump loves freaking Kim Jong-un. They exchange beautiful love letters while Kim Jong-un continues to violate the United Nations resolutions that say he cannot be firing short range, medium range, any kind of missiles. They just make crap up over there. And they're all on the same page. It's so freaking creepy, so creepy. And it's all based on this one tape of Joe Biden at the Council on Foreign Relations, which is why I played that for you multiple times today early so that you could understand where they were going and what they're talking about. Somehow Joe Biden was bribing Ukraine. No, what he was saying to Ukraine was, your government is still not clean, and we know this because here you are 2 years after the demonstrations. You got this new Poroshenko dude. He's got a new prosecutor general. Your security services are still, throwing acid in reporters' faces. You're still killing journalists. And your people have reached out to the European Union, and your people have reached out to America and asked us to create an independent anti-corruption unit. And we're going to do it. And they did. And then they were able to have elections, and now we have this guy Zelensky, and now Trump is inserting himself at the behest of Vladimir Putin into Ukrainian business again to say, you don't want to be not corrupt. There's no money in it. Here's the 250, and here's another 140 just for you. That's bribery. That's sick. And everyone on Fox News is going to put this taint on the Bidens. Now, you could say a lot of things about Joe Biden, a lot of things. Corrupt? I don't think so. Chuck in Florida. May I help you? All right. Jim in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Hi.
Randy?
Yes. Hi.
Yeah. Really, thanks for the timeline. You really laid it out well.
Thank you.
I think that certain people now are talking about either Coates or his assistant being the whistleblower. I'm not sure if that has any credence, but the point I wanted to make was that your timeline is great, but to bring it into the current situation, I mean, these guys knew that this was going to get out, and so they delayed it long enough that Barr could get out there, and now Giuliani's out there, and now Fox is on it. They're doing the same thing that they did with the Mueller report.
Right, exactly. Yes, with the Mueller report. Yes, it's exactly that. It is actually get ahead of it, put it out there, put the taint on whoever it is that you're trying to taint, whether it's Mueller.
Oh, you got the right word. That's for sure. Taint is what you got.
That's what it is. That's what it's all about. It's just about, now everybody's going to have second thoughts about Joe Biden. You know what their problem is? Their problem is they didn't count on the whistleblower, and the timeline wasn't exactly what they wanted. They wanted Joe Biden to become the nominee first, and then they were.
I agree with that.
But the whistleblower screwed it all up for them. That's the problem.
That was a great point on your part. I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah, that's it. That's really what happened.
I'm sure that's right out of Lee Atwood's playbook.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is so easy to see. Okay, their timeline has.
Well, it's easy for us to see, but the rest of the country stands there and goes, "Oh well, who's Lee Atwood? I don't know who he is."
Atwater, Lee Atwater.
Or Atwater, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, there are people in this country, like Lee Atwater, what's his face? Grover Norquist is one. Karl Rove is another one. They're
And now Fox has the extensions of all those characters.
Yes,
so.
they're Machiavellian, devils. They really are, and they twist every single story on its head. But they do it in such a way that there's a question in your mind about whether or not this person can be trusted.
This is geopolitics getting into our system now.
No, it's hardball. There's no question. But you know what?
I call it a blood sport. They've turned it into a blood sport.
But it's always been that. What's different here is this is against the law. They've gone too far. No, really, they've gone too far. You can't.
Oh, I agree.
Right. The bribery that occurred actually occurred, but Trump did it, not Obama. And you would have to believe that Obama was so corrupt. I mean, this is a man who had zero scandals. I mean, none. Entered into a Paris Accord for climate change. You know, today the whole globe is protesting climate change. There are thousands and thousands of people in the street in 5,000 different places around the world. He got us into the Paris Accords. He got us into the JCPOA, but he's the bastard. Yeah.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show.
It is.
To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844.
Okay.
That's 561-270-3844.
Thanks, Duffy.
It's not a coincidence that this happens on the same day that the whistleblower issue arises. Because in that case, as you point out, there is an odd provision that doesn't allow for any judicial review. So we have the president taking the extraordinary position by indirection through the acting director of national intelligence that he can withhold intelligence information of an urgent kind that goes to the security of the nation from the intelligence committees of Congress, even though an act of Congress says that that's where the whistleblower should go. And it's clear that his position now is nobody can do anything to me. They can't touch me. I have Article 2 on my side. I can do what I want. Congress can't touch me. They can't ask questions of anyone who's ever worked with me or anyone who's had anything to do with me. The state courts can't investigate me. The federal government can't indict me. And, you know, Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to impeach me. So I'm home free and I can get away with murder. That can't be the law in the United States. That's not why we fought a revolution against a king just in order to get a tyrant. It's astonishing, and hopefully this will finally wake people up and realize this guy has got to go.
That's Lawrence Tribe. He is a constitutional scholar, teaches constitutional law. Harvard, okay? Big brain. Huge. And yesterday I told you this whistleblower law, because the intelligence community has to be operating outside of the public's view in order to protect allies who give us intelligence, in order to protect the operators who get the intelligence, in order to create a safe space to exchange information that allows the United States to protect itself and other countries that cooperate with us to protect themselves. Everything has to be out of the public's view. And so there is no judicial review of this claim that the Department of Justice is making, saying the whistleblower cannot speak to Congress. And yesterday, the Inspector General went to Congress and met behind closed doors and told Congress, I'm beside myself. I don't know what to do. I'm being instructed by the president not to do my job. And the law clearly requires me to provide you with the information, but the president of the United States is ordering me, commanding me not to turn this information over to you. What do I do? And so there's another little crisis that we're facing with regard to the lawless nature of this president. And the fact that listen, we're becoming more like Russia and less like Ukraine. And Ukraine is becoming more European and American and less Russian. You know, Donald Trump never met an oligarch, a dictator, an autocrat, a communist leader. She is communist, never met, Duterte in the Philippines, never met anybody who brutalizes his own people that he didn't worship, Kim Jong-un, for instance. I mean, he has decided that autocrats have it right, that the unwashed masses, the people, are too stupid to self-govern, and therefore it's up to the elite to rule. Because there's just too much money in these economies for the people to have any say over their future. There's just too much at stake. It's too much cash, too much money, too much opportunity, too much, lording of power. The elites have got it down and everybody else is a dupe. And that's how he does it. So there's no country for him. There's no democracies for him. There's no people for him or peoples. There's only one giant thing, and that's shekels and rubles and pounds and dollars and euros, and that's it. That's all there is money. That's it. Erin in L.A.
Oh, hi, Randy.
Hi,
Thanks
Erin.
For everything.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for supporting us.
Oh, you're amazing. So I'm trying to wrap my head around Ukraine, and I have two questions too. So if you take one off here, fine. My one question is Sue Gordon, and it always bothered me that she left at the. I think it was. Who was it? It was Coates that interrupted a meeting.
Yep.
I think on election security, and said, "You got to get out."
Mm-hmm.
And that is just so weird because if you're a patriot and you know that something is amiss, then you stay and you fight. And so it's always bothered me that she chose to just run with him. And so that's my one question. And then my second question is if you game out Ukraine. So if they're playing the long game and they're in a hot war with Russia, right? And so they need money. So wouldn't you, if you're on the right track and you're the reformers, don't you say, fine, we'll investigate, give us the money, and then they delay, hope for a Democratic leader, and then they get their money, they get to stave off attacks by Russia, and then they get to come up with we tried, we didn't find anything, kind of clearing.
I hope so.
Is that where you think,
yes.
heads?
Yes.
Wouldn't you do the same thing? That's what I'm saying.
Yes, I would.
If you're Ukraine.
Yes.
So then why is Putin advocating that strategy for Trump? I mean, I know Putin needs Trump to win. He definitely needs Trump to win. But, I mean, he's in a hot war with Ukraine. Wouldn't you want to starve your enemy of funds as long as possible?
Maybe. But it's more important that he gets Trump back, okay? It's more important. So what he's going to do is prop up Biden. I mean, there's going to be a lot of trolling around Biden. We love him. He's the most electable. Biden's our guy, da-da-da-da-da. Some of it's real. Some of it's not. This is what Vladimir Putin does. He plays both sides. He did it with Hillary, too, right? And then once the nominee is the nominee, then he knocks him down. I have dirt on this person. So he's hoping that he can strong-arm Ukraine all the way to the end, right? So that they... during the presidential campaign, once Biden is the nominee, if that's the way it plays out, then he actually knocks down Biden, gets Trump again for another 4 years, and he'll worry about it later.
Yeah. So he's helping, but with the mind to hurt. I mean, because he wants Ukraine, so he
wants Ukraine.
Strong.
Yeah, he wants Ukraine.
And he doesn't want them strong, and we're their only kind of ally in this.
But think about the amount of money, Erin, really. $250 million. What is that going to get you in today's, military world, right? I mean, it's not a whole lot of money. It just isn't.
Yeah, so that's his calculation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I think that's right.
I feel like Putin needs Trump to win more than Trump needs to win. Because I feel like it all leads up to Putin.
They both want that, right? They both want that because Putin wants Ukraine and Donald Trump doesn't want to die in prison. So...
Right.
Well, yeah. And he will.
And then the Sue Gordon thing. Does that bother you?
Yeah. Listen, I only know what I know, and you only know what you know, and that is the truth about what happened that day. That Dan Coates ran in, interrupted a meeting, told Sue Gordon, who was the next in line, that she had to get out. That she had to leave that she had to leave the national security agency, and that he was gone and she needed to go and protect herself or whatever. And she just wrote a one-line, it was like a one-line resignation letter saying you should have the team you want. Yeah.
I'm just tired of these people resigning and going away quietly.
I told you yesterday. These people are complacent. They are either doing their jobs at this point because of pensions, or they're doing this job because they like it, or they're doing but they're complacent. They don't make a ruckus. They don't. That's why a whistleblower is so important. And that's why there's so many layers of protection afforded to a whistleblower, because speaking up and speaking out against especially this president is dangerous.
Now, what's interesting is I think what a past caller was like, maybe Dan Coates is a whistleblower. That actually would make sense, because if he's total speculation. But then he and Sue would go out and get the proper protection. You know, like, because they're kind of in the same boat.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
I
it's
just
not.
feel like
It's not
to
a.
run out with the secrets. That bothers me.
No,
You know,
it's not. Yeah, it's not. It's not completely out of this world. I mean, it's not such. It's not a crazy idea. It's just we don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't know. And I love how, just lastly, I love how in the clip with Sean Hannity, he's like it's scandalous. We don't even know who the whistleblower is. And it's like, that's precisely the point, John. They're supposed to
Well,
be
you know what's so
anonymous,
interesting is
protected.
we don't know who the whistleblower is, and we don't know if it's a man, and we don't know if it's a woman, and we don't. But Trump has already characterized the whistleblower as, you know, a partisan hack. Well, if you don't even know,
Well, that's a question. If he knows the identity, we're in real trouble. You know, and if his campaign knows the identity, it's broken. It's so broken.
it is so broken, and that's why what Adam Schiff said yesterday ought to send a chill down your spine. It is so broken. We are so broken. I don't believe we're beyond repair, but we are currently broken. I think we can fix it. I mean, you know, it's going to be a tough slog, but we can do it. We can totally do it. Have a good weekend.